Is this working? Now it is. It's still not working? Hello? Hello? There we go. Hello? I'm pretty loud, so when something's not working on a microphone, I usually know the reason why it's not working. All right, welcome everybody to General Government Budget. We'll start with a request for bill introductions. Are there any today? Not seeing any. I will then move on. We're going to start with the budget hearings before we do recommendations. We're going to start with the Board of Barbering. We're going to start with Julie Kofoid, KLRD. Welcome to committee, Julie. Is it Julie or Julia?
It's Julia.
Yes, I
Thank
thought
you.
so. Okay, I apologize.
You're okay. Good afternoon, Chairwoman Wassinger and members of the committee. My name is Julia Kofoid, and I am a legislative fellow for KLRD, and today I will be presenting the budget for the Board of Barbering. Before I start, I will note that Cassiopeia Caps and the inspector, Jerry, are in the audience with me and will be providing testimony after I give the budget. The Board of Barbering's mission is to protect the health and welfare of the consuming public through the enforcement of existing barber statutes and sanitary regulations established for the barbering profession to ensure that only qualified and well-trained barbers and barber instructors are licensed, and to ensure that all shops and barber colleges are properly licensed for operation. I will note that barbering is a fee-funded agency, so their only source of funds come from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund. If you turn to page 2, I will get into the budget analysis. For fiscal year 2025, if you look at figure 3, you will see the SGF and all other fund actuals approved in agency request. The agency is requesting just over $249,000, which is $22,000 increase, or a 9.7% from the approved amount. The agency does have 5 supplemental requests for fiscal year 2025, which you'll see are items 2 through 6. Due to the global LBC recommendation, these were deleted, but I'm still going to go over them today for you. The first item of the supplements, item 2, the agency is requesting $5,200 from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund. This will help them conduct an additional 59 exams due to the rising cost of travel and the number of people wanting to take barbering examinations. So far in this fiscal year, they have conducted 176 examinations. Page 3 will continue their supplemental requests. The agency requests just under $15,000 from the Barbering Fee Fund for travel costs in fiscal year 2025 for practical examination travel costs. These funds would be applied to hotels and mileage when the board members are traveling for practical examinations, which they are required to attend by statute. The agency also requests an additional $500 for costs associated with the national conference attendance in fiscal year 2025. The agency requests an additional $500, all from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund, for an increase in costs for payroll, printing, and other services in fiscal year 2025. If you'll turn to page 4, we'll continue with fiscal year 2025. Item number 6, the agency requests $1,000 for new tires for the agency vehicle, which is a 2024 Chevy Equinox. It currently has around 35,000 miles on it. And item 7 is categorized other under changes. It is an additional 0.1 FTE position for an increase in salaries and wages. This is due to the executive director being moved from 35 hours to 40 hours, and she is now a full-time employee. Are there any questions for fiscal year 2025?
Committee, do you have any questions? Representative Riley.
Madam Chair, could you read that? Tell me again what the year and everything in that one vehicle that you just said.
Yes. The vehicle is a 2024 Chevy Equinox, and it currently has around 35,000 miles on it.
Okay, that was what,
2023.
23.
Yes.
So one of the things that was in their frequent asked questions here had a little bit to do with, how often do you rebuy or whatever? So is that, would you happen to know, or should I wait till they come testify? So did the other vehicle die? And then they just bought this one?
The vehicle was in a car crash, I believe, and they had repairs that needed to do so. And so because of this, and also the wear on the tires from traveling so much for the practical examinations, they're asking for this money.
Yeah, I understand. Can I follow up on that, ma'am? So I understand that, but I think we had this discussion a week or so ago with another agency of need to either have a 5-year plan on this car, some kind of money in their budget to offset buying new tires, changing the oil, buying a warranty plan. I don't know what, but it just seems like, if you have one vehicle and you're depending that for traveling all over the state, you need to have a little bit more confidence in what you got there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, go ahead and move on to 2026, please.
Fiscal year 2026 begins on page 5. The agency is requesting just over $269,000, which is a $41,000 increase or 18.4% difference from fiscal year 2025 approved amount. They had one enhancement item, which was again removed during the LBC Global recommendation. This enhancement item was for $10,800 to start transitioning to the Granicus website platform. Just a little bit about Granicus. It's an online tool used as a consultant company to build stronger relationships between the government and community. It is an Office of Informational Technology Services approved and contracted development plan and will happen over the course of a few years. The agency's request includes maintenance fees totaling $600 per month in fiscal year 2025, $900 per month in fiscal year 2026, and $1,200 per month in fiscal year 2027. If you turn to page 6, I will go to all other changes for 2026. The agency request includes an increase of just under $8,000. This continues the 0.1 FTE position to move the executive director to full-time. This also includes associated increases in Medicare and employer contributions to CAPERS. The agency also includes an increase of just over $23,000 for contractual services spending in fiscal year 2026. This includes meals and lodging, which they mainly use when they travel to administer their exams. Are there any questions for fiscal year 2026?
Committee, are there any questions? Representative Briley.
So, Madam Chair, just wanted to bring this back out again. I know my colleagues are not going to like this very much, but again, fee-funded agency and looking at their budget and how much they're receiving for some of these fees and things that they're doing, that maybe they need more money. But if you buy a $45,000 vehicle and it's going to last you 5 years, you better be setting aside $9,000 or $10,000 to replace that vehicle and have maintenance. You're missing out on what you need in this budget to cover those kind of unexpected expenses. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right, Julia, I think, oops, Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will you just read out for me the ending balance for 2025 and then for 2026?
Yes, that can be found on page 10 of the budget summary.
Read out loud for me.
The ending balance for fiscal year 2025 is $133,723. And for fiscal year 2026, it's $146,000, $464.
Okay, and just for the committee, that's trending which direction?
In 2027, what was the? I
For
see.
2027, I apologize, $165,000, $999.
All right. Any other questions for Julia? If not, we'll move on.
Perfect. Fiscal year 2027 begins on page 7. The agency is requesting just over $267,000, which is a 39,000. Whoa, I apologize. I was reading big numbers for a minute. $39,000 increase or 17.5% above the approved amount for fiscal year 25. The agency does have 2 enhancements which were both removed during the LBC Global request and recommendation. Those are items number 1 and number 2. I will read them for you. The agency is including an increase of $1,000, all from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund, to replace the tires on the agency's vehicle, which is the same one I spoke about earlier in the budget summary. The second enhancement is including an increase of $3,600, all from the Board of Barbering Fee Fund, for the OITS approved and contracted website system Granicus for fiscal year 2027, and this would be the second year push out of the service. If you turn to page 8, I will continue with fiscal year 2027. They have 2 other changes. The agency is including an increase of just over $9,000 for the 0.1 FTE position, increase to move the executive director and keep her at a full-time position for fiscal year 2027. This amount includes associated increases in group health insurance and hospitalization insurance. The other change is an increase of just over $26,000, and this is for contractual service spending for fiscal year 2027. This is due to an increase in the meals and lodging costs and computer programming costs. Are there any questions for fiscal year 2027?
Committee, are there any questions for 2027? If not, thank you, Julia. We appreciate your time. I'm not sure who's going to come up and speak for the Board of Barbering. Who wants?
The executive director, Cassiopeia Caps.
Cassiopeia. That's really cool. Okay, welcome to committee, Cassiopeia.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Cassiopeia Caps. I am the Executive Director for the Kansas Board of Barbering. I've submitted our testimony. I don't want to read it verbatim, so I'm just going to touch on the key points about our enhancement requests. In fiscal year 24, we spent $20,228.15 on travel for inspections, out-of-state travel for our national, annual, and mid-year conferences, and our in-state travel for our practical examinations. In 24, we administered practical examinations on 5 different weekends, with an additional 3 examinations on a following Monday for Fort Leavenworth Military Correctional Barber Schools. This was a total of 147 barber candidates and 8 barber instructors that were tested. We planned on administering another practical examination, but had to cancel due to budget restraints, which is why our travel for practical examinations in 2025 has increased. For fiscal year 25, we requested an enhancement of $14,898 for travel. This cost indices for travel have increased since last year. The travel overall request is to include travel for in-state for practical examinations, out-of-state travel for our annual conference, and the in-state travel that the board inspector does when she does her inspections. Our board continues to try to save money by holding instructor practical examinations on the Saturday evening before the barber practical examination on Sunday. In addition, we go to Fort Leavenworth for exams. We try to do that on the Monday following the board exam, so it ends up, if we go to Fort Leavenworth, it ends up being a 3-day of examinations that we do. In the first half of fiscal year '25, we have already administered 4 different weekends of practical examinations for a total of 112 barber candidates and 14 barber instructors. In '25, our agency also asked for $1,000 for tires and repairs and services for the agency vehicle. It is a 2023. It was obtained last fiscal year when unfortunately our agency inspector was hit in a car wreck by somebody falling asleep at the wheel, and it totally wrecked that car, so we had to get that. The $1,000 we're hoping to continue over through the next 3 fiscal years to have as some funds at least to help cover cost of repairs and tires if needed. Because we try our best to make sure that that vehicle will last us as long as possible. The only time we get a new vehicle is unfortunately if it's wrecked or if it dies on the side of the road, which has happened to her before. In '25, we also requested $500 for the increase in cost indices paid to services provided to us by other state agencies such as OITS, Department of Administration, and the Division of Printing. There was an enhancement request for $500 for increase in our registration fees for the National Barber Boards of America Conference. That is our annual and mid-year conference we try to attend. That's where we get a lot of communication and collaboration with the other state boards that are out there. That's where we all talk about the different legislation that happens within our states because it all affects the barbering industry, which in turn affects us and the barbers we represent. In fiscal year '26, our agency did request $10,800 for transition into Granicus platform for website building. Our agency would actually like to remove that request as we have found it is not fiscally feasible. And we tried to be a good steward of the funds that we are given. In '27, we also requested an additional $3,600 for increases to the Granicus costs, which we would also like to remove. In fiscal year '27, you will see again that $1,000 for the tires and repairs to the agency vehicle. I also would like to make a note that every year we're told by our budget analysts that we are supposed to have at least 6 months worth of our budget inside our fee fund. And the reason it has increased so much over the last couple of years is because we were given a proviso in fiscal year '23 that goes through '24 and '25 and actually ends at June 30th of this year. The proviso allowed us to charge $150 for written examinations because our fees to what we have to pay for examinations increased. Our fee right now for a written examination is $88. When the proviso ends, what we're able to charge for the written examination will go down to $100. When we receive that $100, we automatically give 10% to the state general fund. That leaves us $90 out of that written examination fee. Out of that $90, we have to pay $88 of it to the written examination. That gives us $2 to pay for our practicals. And I'll stand for any questions. Thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate y'all's.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question for Cassiopeia? Representative Amix.
I don't know anything about this budget.
I know you don't. I know you don't. So be careful what you say. We don't want you to sound.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our colleague across the way had a question about the fund balance a while ago, and it was brought to the attention that 2026 fund balance is anticipated to be 133,000, or 146, and then in 27 anticipated to be $166,000. But yet we always hear that your agency is working on a shoestring, but we see
Yes.
fund balance.
Yes.
Tell me how you don't have money.
That is a nice question. Thank you very much, Representative. Every year, we seem to have to ask for enhancements. We dislike doing so because that tells us we're not budgeting properly somewhere. We find a lot of times we have to budget out 2 or 3 years, and we don't know how things will change. We don't know what prices will go up. We don't know how many people will pay on time, how many people won't pay at all, or how many people end up paying late. We never know. We try to base this off the best estimations that we can. But then at the same time, we are also informed by our budget analysts that we can't spend that money because we don't have it. So it's hard to try to budget for what we estimate to spend, such on practical examinations, traveling for the inspector, or what we need to pay for the Department of Administration, or, our contract with the Smart Service Center or the Attorney General's office. It's hard for us to try to change our budget if we're not given permission to do so.
Yes.
Follow. Are you telling me, and thank you, are you telling me that your fee fund, those figures are wrong?
I do not assume that they would go that high, because right now, like I said, mentioned, we are getting $150 for the examinations, and starting July 1st, it's getting down to $100, so we're only going to be making a $2 profit. So these these estimations for what is going to be in the fee fund will probably be even lower.
Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Following up on that, so who in the department is telling you again that you have to have 6 months of funds?
Budget analyst.
And is that a policy? Is that hardwired in someplace? Is that I'd like to have a little more information on, because there needs to be, that would be a guideline, but not a hard, fast rule. Thank you.
I'll ask the legislative research who they know is their. It's not necessarily someone from KLRD. It's probably someone from the governor's office, the director of budget.
Well, let's
that
put the
correct?
title on and the name on where it belongs then.
I have to tell you, I also don't get the 6-month rule. Businesses don't keep 6 months in theirs. So I know that it's easier to keep 6 months when you're using someone else's money. But when you are taking taxpayer dollars and you're getting higher,
We don't use taxpayer dollars at all. We are completely fee funded.
those are taxpayers.
Oh, yes, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
they're taxpayers.
yes.
It astounds me. You never told us. You told us what your license fees were, but what are your fine costs? Why if your fees on here aren't really going up, then, ooh, I think there are lots of fines. Can you?
No, we actually don't have a lot of fines. We try, our inspector works really close with the barbers in the barber schools. If she sees something that's wrong, the majority of what we find as a violation is a license that's expired. We try to work with the individual and have them correct that right then and there. We actually don't issue a lot of fines to individuals. I think in the last 2 years, we've got maybe $200 from fines.
I'd like to see a breakdown of that if you could,
Okay.
please.
I can gladly send that to you.
I also noticed that your travel and subsistence reimbursement went from around $8,000 in 23 and 24, and it jumped up to 23,000 in 25 and over 20,000 in 26.
Our travel overall is for, as I mentioned, the inspector, the in-state for the practical exams, and our out-of-state travel. Our out-of-state fluctuates because our national conference is given at different locations, and we never know how much that will cost. In-state inspections, I mean, the cost indices go up a little bit, and practicals, we're given more practicals now than we have the last few years. It's our job to test these individuals to make sure that they're able to become licensed. So we have given a lot of practical examinations this year compared to the last few fiscal years. We continue to see that number grow.
Well, somewhere I read that you were having problems getting people to be barbers, that you're short on barbers in the state. It just seems like, I know that things would be more expensive, but I don't think it would jump from almost, let's say 9,000 to 23,000. So that's 24,000. I mean, that's not 24,000, but that's a lot of money to jump up. That doesn't make sense to me.
And overall travel in fiscal year '24, we spent $20,228.15 in overall travel. That
Okay, well,
covered,
everything else kind of stayed the same except for your, that line item. So I'm trying, I'd like you to,
some of our coding, we have been working with the service center on, because some of
Okay.
our coding gets improperly input. We work with the Smart Service Center. They input all of the information for us. We found that the last year and some of this year, they have been inputting out of state as in-state and vice versa. In addition, there are also other items that are being coded wrong. So that is something we are still working with them on.
okay, well then, when you find out that that's coded wrong, you let me know what it is, what happened and where it went.
Yes. I can give you a quick example real quick on the coding issue too, not specifically to travel, but for example, last month, we just had to have a talk with them again because we went to Walmart and purchased envelopes and a few office supplies. And when we just did our Aptio match at the end of December, we found that they had coded that as food for human consumption.
Okay, well, you can stay alive on envelopes. I don't know. Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Cassie, just a question about your board membership. Has anybody changed so they're traveling longer distances now?
We do have three? We have 5 members overall. How many are new? 3. Yeah, we have 3 new members, but for the last 2 fiscal years, we had 1 board member that wouldn't show up to anything.
Okay.
Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to, I remember the last 2 years of the Board of Barbering. You guys have done a relatively decent job of keeping it tight, and and doing with little. And we did some work on your barbering fees, and they're all maxed out now, and your ending balance is healthy. Okay, I'm curious. One question. Is it are you statutorily obligated to come to this committee for line items like tires? Do you have to, or can you not work with that inside your own budget?
We can work with it inside our own budget unless it goes over our base budget and it has to become an enhancement. If it goes over our base budget, then we have to obtain legislative approval to increase our overall budget that's available to be spent. Yeah, last year, fiscal year '24, according to our records and what we were also talking with our budget analysts about, we came within $1,000 of our allotted budget.
Okay, so with a growing ending balance, help me understand that. What am I missing?
I cannot give you a clear answer on that. As I had mentioned, right now, I don't know how it's estimated. If it's estimated by the fees we're receiving right now, it is estimated at $150 for the exams, when starting July, that drops back down to $100. And 88 of that's automatically paid out to one testing company. So we would be paying, having the $2 left over, we'll be paying majority-wise out of pocket for the practical exams.
As a fee-funded agency, I don't want to spend too terrible much time on this. We got a lot of stuff to do today, I know. And this is for every fee-funded agency. It is, and I'm speaking for the legislature, and if you don't agree with this, by all means, correct me. It is our goal to make sure that we have affordable fees for these fee-funded agencies. And it should always be our goal, if you're capped out, to get to a point where you're not capped out, right? Especially when you're with a growing ending budget. I'd love to get us back to that point. I mean, the Board of Barbering is very important to members of this committee, important to the state, important to me because I get my haircut. I don't know if anybody else does, important to me. So I'd love to get us back to that point. I've got some, when we come to work this budget, I think we can get it straight. It won't be any difficulty for this committee, but I'd love to have some conversations offline just to kind of make sure that I understand how you guys are operating, and then the information for which you guys are using to operate on as well. I'd just like to understand it more. We can do that.
I would like to make a note, if I can. We reuse a lot of what we have in our office. Our office is 500 square feet. The desks that are in there, we've had the whole time I've been there. The desks that are in there, we've had since Jerry Bryan, our inspector's been there, and she's been there over 13 years. We don't buy new furniture. We reuse as many office supplies as we can. We still use a typewriter for student licenses because we can't afford to buy anything different. We, get office furniture that other offices have bought brand new stuff and they're getting ready to throw something away. They allow us to get a chair. So, I mean, we don't go out and spend money willy-nilly. We're not like that. We try to be very fiscally responsible with what we spend because we care about what we do. It's a very prideful profession. I care a lot about my job and the people we represent. And I don't want to do that by them thinking all we do is spend money on useless items.
All right. Representative Briley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we had this discussion last couple of years, and so what is the mechanism that we need so this is not a proviso all the time to change your fees? I mean, we know what the maximum is, so what is the trigger so that you can change it to 125, 140, whatever you need to do? Are we controlling that?
Yes, we've actually been trying for the last 5 years to get our statutes updated to separate the examinations fees, one fee for a practical and one fee for the written. That way, it's not the one fee covering all of it. And unfortunately, our bill has not passed these last few years. And we have one that's supposed to be being worked right now, but I haven't heard anything other than it going to the revisor. Yeah, last year, our bill did get passed through Senate committee, through its hearing, and it did get passed through the Senate floor, and it went to the House chamber and set below the line and died. And we never had a committee hearing on the House side either.
Right. Representative Turk.
All right, just to wrap this up, I think we can come up with a bipartisan solution with this, okay? Let's talk afterwards and let's build a plan for next year.
That is most welcome. I appreciate all input that anyone is able to give us because, as I mentioned, we're good stewards. We try our best. We reuse what we can. We don't want to just be fiscally irresponsible. That is not our job. That is not what we're here to do. We are here to regulate the industry, uphold safety standards, and make sure people are licensed and following the law. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you. I also want to tell the committee that Division of Budget advises all agencies on fund balances, et cetera. KLRD only analyzes their budgets. So we're not going to pick on KLRD. We can pick on the Division of Budget. Are there any other questions for Board of Barbering or for anyone at the table who could answer them? Not? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the Board of Cosmetology. And for that, we have Jacob. Thanks for being here, Jacob. We appreciate it. I'm sorry, go ahead. Thank you, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jacob Klesby, and I'm a legislative fellow with KRRD, and I have been assigned to analyze the budget for the Board of Cosmetology. Behind me in the audience is, or directly behind me in the audience is Ben Foster, the Executive Director of the agency, and he may be prepared to stand and answer questions. The Board of Cosmetology, or KBOC, accepts the responsibility to provide licenses, access, and information necessary to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the consuming public. The board also contracts with an exam company to administer national standardized written and practical examinations to licensed students training in the fields of cosmetology and body art. If you will turn to page 2 of the budget summary, this begins the analysis of fiscal year 2025. The legislature approved an amount of $1.3 million for this fiscal year, and the agency has requested spending of just under $1.6 million, an increase of $272,000 or 20% from the approved amount. If you will look at figure 4, there are a number of supplemental requests for this fiscal year, but those were all deleted according to the global motion, but I still will present a summarized version of these supplemental requests. Items 2 through 4 are related to IT expenditures and contracts in total $100,000. Items 5 and 6 are related to the cost of office transfer in total $46,000. Item 7 is the request for an outside audit of the Board of Cosmetology totaling $50,000. Items 8 and 9 are related to communication services totaling $12,000. Item 10 is related to an increase in building space rental totaling $24,000. And items 11 through 16 total $39,000 and are related to other operational costs. Under the adjusted budget request, the agency has requested increased spending of $76,000 for salaries and wages. But this is offset by items 18 through 22, which equal a decrease of $76,000 and are related to various operational costs and contractual services. There also was one FTE position requested for an administrative position under all other adjustments, but this was also deleted according to the global motion. I'm happy to stand for questions on fiscal year 2025 or move on to fiscal year 2026.
Yes, Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Number 7, the outside audit, you know who made that request?
Are you referring to who specifically within the agency or?
Needs the outside audit done.
As for the specifics within the agency, I cannot speak to anybody's intent or who specifically is requesting this, but I can defer to the agency or get back to you with that information.
Okay, are there any other questions for 2025? Keep in mind, everyone, that 2025's fiscal year is over on July 1st. So we only have a few months left. So keep that in mind when you're looking at it. All right, do you want to move on to 2026?
If you will turn to page 8 of the budget summary, this begins the analysis of fiscal year 2026. The legislature once again approved an amount of $1.3 million, and the agency has requested $1.5 million, a $209,000 increase or 15.9%. Turning to figure 7 on the same page, the agency has requested a variety of enhancements, once again deleted according to the global motion for various contractual services totaling $90,000. For an adjusted budget request, the agency has requested an amount of $118,000. In this, there is an $87,000 increase for salaries and wages, $14,000 for InterGov communication services, $5,000 related to rent costs, $15,000 for other service fees, $18,000 for attorneys and lawyers payments, and a decrease of $12,000 and one FTE position, which was deleted by the global motion. I apologize, the FTE position was deleted, not the decrease of $12,000, but those both fall under all other adjustments. That concludes fiscal year 2026. I'm happy to stand for questions or move to fiscal year 2027.
Are there any questions for 2026? If not, we'll move on to 2027.
If you will turn to page 11 of the document, this begins the analysis of fiscal year 2027. The agency has requested spending of, apologies, my pen fell. Requested spending of $1.5 million, a 17% increase from the approved amount totaling $223,000. The agency once again has requested enhancements totaling $90,000 for contractual services, which can be displayed under items 1 through 3 under figure 10. Under other changes for the adjusted budget request, the agency has requested an amount of $132,000. There is $101,000 for salaries and wages, $13,000 for InterGov communication services, $5,000 related to building space rental, $15,000 for other service fees, $8,000 for attorneys, and a decrease of $12,000 for all other adjustments, and the addition of one FTE position, which was deleted by the global motion. This concludes the analysis of fiscal year 2027. Before I conclude the presentation, I would like to draw your attention to page 14 of the document. This is a reference table showcasing the 10-year expenditure history of the agency. Following that, on page 15, there's an overview of the agency's special revenue funds, which detail the agency's ending balance at the fiscal years 2023 through 2027. And on the final page, page 16, there is a table illustrating the Board of Cosmetology's fees. If you'll notice, the previous fee column is blank, and that is due to the fact that the agency's fees have not changed within the last 2 fiscal years. Thank you. I'm happy to stand for any questions.
Are there any questions of Jacob? Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Going back, 2025, there was item number 10, the building space rental for FY 2025. Say one-time request of $24,000. And then also in 26 and 27, there was an ask for $5,500 each year. Those increases?
So that, are you asking if it's an increase on,
$24,000 for, the next several months. Seems like a lot.
as for the particulars, if those are direct increases on those, I'm not, and I guess for the same itemization, I don't know if they're categorized exactly. They are related to an office transfer that is expected to occur towards the end of the year of 2025. But as, if they are specifically itemized the same, I apologize, I do not have that information in front of me.
And I will point out the end of 2025 is the beginning of FY 26. So that's something to keep in mind. Okay? Are there any other questions of Jacob? If not, thank you, Jacob. I appreciate your analysis. And now I'll ask for Ben Foster to come up. Welcome to committee, Mr. Foster. Thank you for being here.
Madam Chairman, committee. First of all, let me say, I only found out about this an hour and a half ago, so I have no prepared statement. I am willing to answer questions. There are a couple of things I'd like to touch on based on questions that I've heard. The $24,000, I'm not sure what that is. I don't recall asking for $24,000. We asked or put in the budget for an additional $41,800 for the next couple of years. We are located in the Jayhawk building. As you may be aware, the theater is being renovated. They want our space. We've been told at the end of September we have to move. We are trying to locate space. We have tried to locate space. We've been working with Department of Administration. Excuse me. They want us to go to Landon Building. We don't want to go to Landon Building. We currently pay $12.99 a square foot for our space. If you go to any state building currently, you have to pay $22.35 per square foot. That's where the $41,800 is. If we are forced into Landon, we're going to need additional funds to do that. We will make it through this fiscal year because we don't have to be out of the building until September of this year. But going forward, if we are forced into Landon, we're going to need another $41,800. We have located space on our own at the corner of 8th and Topeka, and they are advertising it for $14.99 a square foot. That's where we would like to go as staff. It's not totally up to us. It's up to DOA where we end up. We have provided them the information. We have put them in contact with the realtor, and the space is owned by a church. So they're working that out. We hope we get that, and we won't need the 41.8, but I had to put it in the budget going forward. We asked in there for $33,000, an additional $33,000. As you may recall, last year, Senate Bill 66 set up a platform of information across the state for boards to put licensure information in it, so it'll be like a one-stop. Our licensing vendor has told us to do that, it will cost $33,000. plus $4,000 a month, a year to operate it. So we made that request. DOA is telling us now that they will pay the $33,000 for us to access that system. So that amount will not be in there also. So those are two things in that budget that we hopefully will not need. There was a question about cars. We have 5 cars because we have 5 inspectors around the state. We don't just inspect and investigate complaints. We do inspections of all of our facilities. In terms of replacing those cars, we have in the budget the money to replace 1 car per year. We replace a car and we shift them around because some inspectors drive more than others. So when we get a new car, we rotate it so that we can get the most wear out of a car. So technically, every 5 years, we will replace a car. Unfortunately, this year, we had replaced a car and we had one of our inspectors have an accident. So even though it's not in this budget, we need to get another car. Things happen. But we have in the budget money to change the oil. We put in there for gas. We put in there for tires, things like that. We budget for that. We budget for a car a year. We also found out after the last accident that the state mandated coverage is only liability. So we lost a car and we get nothing towards replacing it. The outside audit. I have appeared before this committee or before committees twice asking for an outside audit. I'm the person who asked for the outside audit. I inherited this. I got here in July of 2023. There are a lot of things I don't like. There are a lot of things I think we could do better. I'd like an overall review of what we do, how we do it, so that a recommendation can be made. Yes, I know there's a legislative post-audit out there. There seems to be some cantankerous, I hate to say animosity between various levels of government regarding their reports. I just want somebody to audit us and make some recommendations. To get around the LPA discussions, for the last 2 years, I put the $50,000 in and asked for an outside audit. I understand that people don't like organizations like Legislative Post-Audit. I worked for one of those organizations. I'm from Virginia. I worked for the Joint Legislative Audit Review Commission, known as JLARC. You may have heard of them through NCSL. A lot of people know of JLARC. So I understand that people aren't real happy when you show up. I'm not fighting that fight. I'm the emissary here. I'm just trying to make things better. I talked about the move. The IT. One of the things that I inherited was there was a new licensing system being purchased. It's called Big Picture from a company out of Minot, North Dakota. Albertsons Consulting. I had nothing to do with purchasing it. I'm not fond of it. We are finding out there are problems with that contract. And I have asked for the contract to be reviewed, but nobody wants to do it. You know, even the people who are responsible for that contract. Within that contract, it says that yearly, one place it says $65,000, another place it says $75,000. We've been paying the $75,000. It didn't talk about a maintenance contract within that. Now they want to charge us a maintenance contract of either $45,000 a year or $165 an hour when we have a problem with this system. It has been a drag on our budget. We have been paying that $165 an hour when we needed to contact them about something because it doesn't work. I mentioned the 33,000 earlier to tap into the Senate Bill 66. That has been a big drain on our budget. We haven't raised fees for over 12 years. We are at the cap for most of our fees. I have been working with a representative to change that language so that the cap can be raised so that we can increase fees. No, we don't really want to increase fees, but we have to. We haven't done that for 12 years. We would not be asking for exorbitant fees. If we raised fees, it will still have to go through you because it's regulation. We're just asking at this point for the cap to be raised so that we can go forward with raising those. Any questions on anything I haven't touched on?
Representative Hubert.
Appreciate your presentation. Sounds like I'm here from the government and here to help. So,
I'm just the emissary.
yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. I feel your pain. The one thing that I thought just jumped out, I appreciate you finding your location. If we simply didn't fund the 41,000 and put a language in the budget that encouraged the department not to choose Landon and allow you your choice to go through, sounds like a cost savings, a win-win. It's what you want. So that seems like an easy fix on that one little piece.
On that aspect, state law does not require us to go to a state building. You can go elsewhere. We knew about this last year and reached out to DOA. However, they didn't even put out an RFP until we found that space. So it kind of slowed us down once we got to that point. We're trying to do what we can to save money.
It sounds very reasonable. It sounds like something this committee would support. So, thank you.
All right. Does anyone else have a question? Representative Turk.
I feel the same way, Madam Chair. I see 11 that I count off the top of my head, fees that have not reached its statutory limit. What specific fees are you wanting to raise? What statutory limit do you want to go to?
If you look at our statute, we have, because we license more than just cosmetology. I mean, we have manicurists, electrologists, tattooing, estheticians, and tanning operations. We are looking at raising the level on being able to raise everything cosmetology. The amount at this point is iffy. I'm trying to get my board to come up with amounts where we would raise within that, providing there wasn't a ceiling. We simply need to make revenue meet expenditures.
Well, I have a question. Why would you need to raise fees when you have $1.4 million in your ending balance?
We don't see that. The information that we see in Aptio doesn't show 1.4 million.
Well, it's almost 1.5, but I would not be friendly towards a raise of fees until you figure out from the Department of Administration and Division of the Budget, figure out how much money you have and go with that. And make sure that these people who have been fined over the last few years so heavily. The last time I asked about how much you had in unencumbered funds, your ending balance, I said, well, obviously you need it for training. No, we don't train our people. You help them figure out how to do new programs. No, we don't do that. You just get their fee and fine them. So
Fines have fallen about $20,000 over the last couple of years, which in a way is a good thing. we really want the fines to go down, because if the fines goes down, it means that people are listening to our inspectors. They're being, they are keeping clean shops. You don't risk going in there when someone getting their hair done and getting an infection. We really want on a certain level, we want the fine revenue to go down. It means that people are doing what they should. They're keeping clean shops. They're not letting unlicensed people operate. That's sort of a double-edged sword for us. And as I said, our records show that that's gone down about $20,000.
All right. Representative Riley, and then we're going to have to move on because we have budget recommendations to do.
I would follow your lead on that, but I think we need to be seeing on all these agencies how much money is being fined. I think that needs to be a line item, so we see that as income that's being used as income.
It is, I know it's in our narrative. It is listed in our narrative of what we, I don't have the figures with me, but we put in our narrative and within the budget what we take in fines. That information is out there. I can specifically pull it out and get it to you, but I know that we include that in our budget.
We'd like to see the last 5 years.
Okay.
I'd appreciate that. Are there any other questions at this time before we move on? Thank you, Mr. Foster, for being here. We've had a contentious relationship with the Board of Cosmetology because they've been contentious with us, but you've been quite gracious. So we'll figure out how we can fix all of that.
I need help fixing it, and I will take any help that I can get.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to do budget recommendations. We'll start with the judicial branch. Are there any comments or discussion from the committee that would like to bring something up first before I start my rant? Representative Turk.
Can I get some information once again on that $200,000 pass-through that we heard? Can I get a once-over for that one more time, just so that I am confident in my proposal?
All right. Yes, please.
Chairwoman Wassinger, members of the committee, my understanding is that the $200,000 for the expungement grant is included in the FY 2025 budget, and that they're requesting it again for fiscal year 2026. And then yesterday, my understanding is that there might have been an additional request that wasn't in the accounting system.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am, and I have a motion for that specifically, when you're ready.
Okay. Is there any other discussion about any items in their budget? Well, I'll get started. Do you want to say something? Representative Pickert.
Okay, so I've gotten some information here that the $3 million that they had for the employer share, 3 million was being struck, but it's for the employer's share of health insurance and capers, as well as the step increases for existing employees. That is not an enhancement, so that's what I've been told anyway. So that.
Is that in 2025?
2026.
have something else? Representative?
Okay. Another thing is restoring the $840,853 in reappropriations for fiscal year 2025. So this is information from the judicial branch. This was appropriated to them last year to provide identity theft protection and credit monitoring protection for victims of the cybersecurity attack. The enrollment period spanned across the fiscal years, and that's why the amount was reappropriated. A portion not needed for credit monitoring will be used for other security-related expenditures. And then the third thing is including 1.2 million for fiscal year 2026 for IT and cybersecurity enhancements. A portion of this request, which is 33,000, is directly related to company requirements imposed by SB 291, which was last year's cybersecurity bill. The rest of the request focuses on several infrastructure enhancements and software and training tools to bolster cybersecurity and IT protections. I know that their cybersecurity is a must. I mean, it was a mess before, and it's cost a lot of money to straighten it out, and we need to support getting what they need for that.
All right. I don't think,
that-
no, she's giving information. Is there any other discussion from the committee? Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the comments that the Vice Chair brought up, I think that those were the priorities that were listed from the agency. From the-
Yes,
Want to make sure.
All right, once again, I'm going to remind the committee that, oops, sorry, I need to do that. That we're almost done with 2025. So these amounts are not quite in line with the amount of time that's left in 2025. So we should look at the 2025 and 2026 as a whole, because it's pretty close together. Start with 2025. I just don't think that 840,853 are still needed for credit monitoring, especially with the amounts that they gave us before. I would take that to $250,000, and I think that will take care of the rest of 2025 and probably more so, but we can look at it again in next year and decide whether we need to continue that. Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In reading this, so doesn't that span across the next fiscal year also?
Kind of. But I just think it's kind of, I think next year they can come back and ask for, if they do need more, if they can show that they've needed a lot more money for credit monitoring. I think the last year it was around $150,000. Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me just recap what we know so far. Maybe it'll help the committee. When they came to us last year, they had no idea how many people were going to request credit monitoring. Now that we had a year pass, they know harder numbers, who has requested it, and it's not obviously the max, because once you start, you're going to be like, well, if we affected 100 people, we got to expect 100 people are going to request credit monitoring. Well, in reality, only 20 did, so that's what their expenditures are. And if I understand correctly, Madam Chair, your $250,000 will cover the current expenses plus some for what who is currently requesting credit monitoring.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense to me. And
So I'm trying to pull this together for a final motion as we go along. Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So
They indicate the portion not needed for credit monitoring will be used for other security-related expenditures. Do we know what they have in mind with that, or do we need more?
No, we've not been told.
Do we need more information on it, or is it too late for that?
I think that's too late. I think we've heard as much as we need to right now. They can come back to appropriations and give us more information, and we can reconsider it at appropriations. I don't want to take away from our job to look through these, but you do know that it's going to go back to appropriations. We can just throw money at everyone if we want to. I guarantee it's going to be pulled out at appropriations. So let's try to look at it with a really good fiscal sharp eye. And they have a chance very soon to get more money if they need it, if they show us that they really need the money. So we'll move on to information services support. Representative Turk, I believe you had a comment to make about that.
I do. If you're going to make a grand motion, I'll hold off, but I have a motion to make for the $200,000 pass through. I know they made it a last minute effort to bump that up a little bit, given the circumstances. And let me remind everybody, it's our job at this level to set up these agencies for success at the next level. Given the expectations that we were provided at the beginning of session of our overall fiscal situation, we need to be responsible. And I know a lot of these agencies are showing us that they didn't get the memo, or that their particular agencies have extra special requests. But we do need to remember our role in all this, and it is to set them up for success at the next level. I really personally, and after our conversations with several in this committee, see the importance of the expungement, the $200,000 expungement. They're making good headway, and it's a necessary tool within our system. So unless this is going to fit in your overall motion, I would make a motion that we maintain their $200,000 for the next for 26.
Okay, I had asked about something else, and so I just wanted to make sure that I'm still on the same page.
Oh.
Is there a second to that motion? Second by Representative Melton to maintain the 200,000 pass-through for the expungement program. Is there any discussion on it? If not, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I move that, and this is for 2025, we concur with the Legislative Budget Committee and also take the SGF appropriation with the unspent funds down to 250,000 for credit monitoring. Is there a second? Representative Pickert, I'll let you do the next one. All right, is there any discussion? I'm sorry. Yes, of course you can.
Hi, this is Molly Pratt with Legislative Research. I just want to make sure I understand the motion correctly. Would it be to leave $250,000 in reappropriations for the agency? Okay, thank you.
Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate the comments about setting an agency up for success at the next level, and I appreciate the comments by our colleague from Shawnee, but I still feel a little bit like I have a responsibility to legislate and look at these requests in such a way that I believe helps the public as a whole, and I just want everybody to know that my vote will reflect that.
All right, thank you.
Chair.
Is there any other comment from the committee? Not, then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. We have 2 nay and the rest are ayes. Motion passes. All right. All right, now we need to go on to 2026, I believe, which is a lot more complex. Is there any comment by the committee before I start spewing, which I probably should have told you before what I was thinking, but before I start giving my soapbox on this, so I'd love a comment here and there for anyone who's thought about it. Yes, Representative Melton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You talked me into it. So going forward, would we ask for the 200 expungement for again, or would it just stay there? Do we need to ask for it again in this year?
Is it again for 26?
Hi, this is Molly Pratt with Legislative Research. I believe staff's understanding of Representative Turk's motion was that the $200,000 for expungement was for fiscal year 2026.
Okay. That's taken care of. Let's start with, does anyone feel that they need to change what legislative budget did? Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just so that we don't step on each other's toes, because I got ahead of you there and I don't want that to happen again. I think the committee would love to hear if you've got any direction, and we can work off of what your direction is from there. That's all right with you.
All right, well, I, for the most part, am in somewhat agreement with LBC for different costs. I do think that I do disagree with information services support, so that we put back in the 447,800 in SGF for increased support for information services. I also feel like we need to make sure that we fund e-court services and specialty courts. And I think I passed that somewhere. Okay. And the specialty courts, and having been a county commissioner who put county funds towards specialty court, it's time that we start putting our money where our mouth is and not do the same thing and expect a different result. So, yes. Oh, the LBC wasn't taking out e-court. I thought they did. Okay, that's the wrong one. Oh, this is not in my 2026. Okay. All right. So, are there any other agreements or disagreements so that we can move on to the next recommendations? We're Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, okay, going off of that information, I do have a motion.
All right.
Okay. Let me get my mind right here. This is a very large document. All right. So in 2026, going through, I agree with you wholeheartedly with the specialty courts. I think given the overall budget and given how long it will likely take to roll this out, I believe 1.5 million for specialty courts is a reasonable start. They'll get going. They'll come back in the next FY, and we'll hear a more thorough report out of where they are with it, and then we can advance funding from there.
Okay.
Additionally, I would like to keep all their requested funding for the e-court services. So that's was it 708,900? That's in there, correct? That
Yes.
LBC, correct? Was that? So
Yes.
we're keeping. I want to make sure that
Yes, we're
stays in.
keeping all of all of LBCs, so we need to change whatever amounts or what we disagree with on the ones that they don't.
Yeah, I just want, okay, so salaries and wages, so number 9, in this motion, I would propose a 5% increase for court reporters only. Given the briefing that we received about court reporters statewide, it is a long neglected career field that does need a tactical increase in their overall pay structure. And again, knowing the overall budget issues, I think a very tactical increase for court reporters is appropriate. So just to be clear, it's 1.5 million in specialty court funding and a 5% increase for court reporters only, salaries and wages. For 2026. That is my motion.
And are you concurring with LBC on everything else? All right. There's a motion on the table from Representative Turk. I believe he says specialty courts at 1.5 million to start, 5% for court reporters only, raise in salary. Did I miss anything? And there's a second by Representative Riley. Does anyone have a comment to say? We did not.
I agreed with LBC for that number. I agreed with the LBC on that line item.
And again, this is not the end of the road. We'll have to duke it out in appropriations. Believe me, we will. So then I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, say nay. All right, motion passes. All right, now we have some time to go to the Attorney General's office. Here we go. All right. For 2025, is there any discussion by the committee regarding the Attorney General's office? Pulling teeth from this committee. All right, Representative Turk.
Okay, could I just get some clarification for the year for 2025? Just trying to consider what the chair has mentioned about 2025 being almost over. So natural gas settlement is no longer in the budget. Is that correct, team? Is that they struck that?
That was taken out, I think, yes.
Okay, great.
It's been,
And we need, in order to keep Vine operating, they'll need an appropriation for 2025, is that correct? Team?
yes.
Yes. Okay.
And we also, because of SB 291, which I was a big part of, we require them to have a CISO hired. So the Chief Information Security Officer and support funding, I would agree to. And put that back in. I think they deleted it, but I would put it back in.
Okay, so I would say my motion for 2025 would be to add the CISO to be in compliance with House Sub SB 291, and then to add back in funding for the Vine system. Now, this is the 4th time we've heard the Vine system presentation in this committee over the last 4 years, and it would be hard pressed to argue that this is not a necessary system.
I agree.
So with those two changes, I would agree with the LBC, with all the rest of their recommendations in 2025. That would be my motion.
All right, there's a motion on the table from Representative Turk and a second by Representative Riley. It includes Vine, the Vine program, the CISO, as well as
LBC,
5%
LBC recommendations.
LBC recommendations, but that includes, we already did the 5% for the court.
Yeah, that.
That was back before. Okay, there we go. All right. Representative Amix.
Madam Chair, just for clarification, since there's only a few months left in 2025, was the amount for the Vine system $248,000? So would you want to fund that for the entire year?
That's a good question.
Good question. Yeah, that's a really good question.
Legislative research might help us out with that.
How much did were they appropriated for Vine this last year when we were doing it? Which they're still getting, for the rest of the year, so. Can we get a response from Ariana?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. So for last year, they were appropriated $300,000 for the buying system.
And they're asking for an additional 248,322 SGF for the Vine system in 2025, and they've already gotten 3. So
If I understand correctly, it's a supplement. So we provided them 3, the grand total was 5. They're asking for the rest. Does that make sense? So we provided them 3,000 last year. The grand total is 548,322. We're topping it off to finish the rest of the year. And then in 26, it appears that we're doing the same. Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I see.
So to answer your question, yes, for 2025, that's the total they need for 2025.
Madam Chair, the only reason I bring it up is we've had a lot of discussion on what's needed to finish out 2025 throughout the afternoon.
Okay, that was a very good question. Thank you so much for that. And I'd like to amend your motion to add 225,000 SGF for 2026 for relocating their offices, which has, and honestly, I would give them the 300,000 for it. Did you say for
2025.
Okay, all right.
Just
We can add it on
2026.
later. Okay, you got me moved into 2025. It's getting late. All right. So is there any other discussion on the 2025 appropriation that motion that's on the table? If not, then I'll ask for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes. All right, 2026, since I tried to jump up there. All right, is there any discussion on this budget other than my first discussion? I understand that that they believe that LEAP relocation is going to be that expensive, but I think if they do need money to do that, but I'd like to keep it at 300,000, to be honest. And if appropriations wants to go back up, then we will do that. They've asked for the Office of Medicaid Inspector General and asked for 3 more FTE positions for 2 auditors and 1 special agent. I'm not sold on that with 3 FTEs. So I would concur with LBC at this point. I would also add CISO and IT support funding because it's required by SB 291. And you also wanted to add the Vine system funding. And then concur with the rest of the LBC choices for the Attorney General. I would move, you want to make the motion? Does anyone else want to make the motion for this, or do you want? Do you want to discuss what I said, or do you want me just to do what I said? Okay, I'm happy to take charge and take the heat. So just let me know. Yes, Representative Turk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a quick question. I'm looking over the Office of Medicaid Inspector General, and I'm wondering, with this expense, how much can we recoup as a result of their investigations? We all are perfectly aware of the amount of Medicaid fraud that that not only goes on in this state, but everywhere. And with this position, which they have asked for, like, I think this is their maybe second or third time they've asked for this position, we keep punting it.
I was not made aware of that.
What is the overall return on investment for this? And yeah, if we can get some feedback on that, I have an idea.
Do you want me to ask anyone in the audience if they can answer that question? I see someone
up to you, Madam
squirming
Chair.
from his seat that wants to run over and say something.
That's up to you.
Yes, you may come to this podium, please.
Madam Chair, I'm Steve Anderson. I'm the Medicaid Inspector General. And yes, the return on investment is significant. Since I've been the Inspector General since 2021, we've identified almost $300 million in wasteful spending. We've identified over $24,000 or $24 million in potential savings. So the return on investment is substantial. The people we're asking for would allow us to recover additional funds. As was pointed out by Attorney General Kobach yesterday, we asked for additional funding last year. It was vetoed by the governor. She said, come back and ask for it through an enhancement. That's what we're doing. She supports the idea of additional oversight. She just wanted us to go through the preferred method to do that. But I do believe that if given these additional resources, and I pointed out to the Coach Committee this morning, is Medicaid is a $5.5 billion program. Most estimates go to the amount of fraud in Medicaid program at being at least 10%. 10% of 5.5 billion is 550 million. My operating budget's just over $1 million. I'm asking for about another $340,000 to do more audits to save even more millions of dollars. An audit that we did on CCRCs, which is continuing centers for providing care, will save the state of Kansas over $12 million this fiscal year. So we are making a difference. We just need resources to make a bigger difference. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No wonder you were squirming in your seat. I understand. Representative Turk.
Thank you, ma'am. I kind of that's kind of my feeling. I thought that might be the case. With that, I'll make a motion on this particular budget.
Okay.
On the Office of Medicaid Inspector General, I move that we fund this with a request that next year we receive in this committee a report and a breakdown of our investment. I'd like to see what we can acquire within this time period.
I see the Inspector General nodding his head. He will absolutely do that.
Additionally, I move that we provide $350,000 of the requested $450,000 for their relocation, and advise that they try and make it the extra $100,000 work within their own budget. Again, carrying over from the previous budget, their CISO and IT support funding as required by law. And then buying system funding, give them their request. That was deleted by the LBC. And then agree with the LBC on the rest of the.
All right, there's a motion on the table for the money going to the Medicaid Inspector General and 350,000 for moving, as well as the CISO and IT support of 343. And the Vine program, which is 248,000. So is there a second? Okay, Representative Riley.
I have a discussion question and just asking, are you asking, or are you putting a proviso on that? Or was that just a suggestion that you were making?
Within, Madam,
Yes.
within the, whatever we do is a recommendation, not a proviso.
Okay.
I trust with the integrity of this agency, they will provide.
If we can't trust the Attorney General, we're in big trouble. Okay. All right, there's a motion and a second, and there's discussion. Representative Amix.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Question, as we go to this next level for consideration and appropriations, the fact that we're recommending hiring 3 FTEs, do we really think that there's an opportunity for that to get through?
Representative, who are you asking? Representative Turk, are you asking me, or are you asking the agency? I don't have the answer to that, but I don't really like the 3 FTEs, but right, to fund more people to look towards it. We just keep growing government, so. Representative Turk.
I am grateful for the question because I've been wanting to say this all day. It's very rare that we can invest in something that will bring money back to the state. And there are very important reasons why you need to hire people that work for the state when necessary. And I assure you, before we're done here in this committee, I will find 3 FTEs and more to replace. Mark my words.
Thank you,
A
Representative.
lot of budgets.
Yes, Representative Amix.
Tough week, huh?
It doesn't have to be a tough week for the representative to get deep into a budget, so.
It's just my concern that, that's what we're doing, and we have made it pretty clear throughout this entire
Right.
process about making additions. That's my only concern.
Thank you. I understand. And I also realize that that has great merit when he says he's going to save even more millions of dollars. How many employees do we add in different organizations? And I don't want to say one in particular, but adding employees when they already have plenty. So, all right. Is there any other discussion? Is there anything from the peanut gallery over there? All right, then I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, say not, nay? No? One? I don't like that. Okay, motion passes. Oh, hold on. What? Oh, yes.
This is just to clarify Representative Turk's motion on the judicial branch.
Yes.
For the court reporters portion of it, do you have a dollar amount associated with it?
Does not. He said 5% raise. So that has to be determined, correct?
Yeah, because I'm not a savant, I cannot put those numbers together that
I
quick.
think you have a savant.
5% was what we did for so many agencies last year. It was a nice, easy, round number that was defensible at the next level. So I'm going to leave that up to you mathematicians to come up with the total number, and then I will do my best to defend it in appropriations.
So to clarify, so very rough back of napkin math, we're looking at roughly $400,000-$500,000. Want to make sure it's what this committee intends.
We will, yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. Thank you.
Yes, I believe that is because we have to have court reporters and we don't have them. So, all right. Is there, and are there any other questions? All right. This was, yeah, this was a bear. I appreciate the committee and I look forward to hearing from my peanut gallery. So this meeting is adjourned.